Irwin. We are coming to you live, actually, from Las Vegas, Nevada, using the office of the law office of Alan Butel, an attorney here in Las Vegas, who gleefully lets us use one of his rooms in his office for the broadcasting of Fired Up. So he gets a 2-second commercial that we are here, and Alan handles criminal defense and civil litigation cases, and he's a frequent guest on Fired Up, which is easy for him because it's in the next room. So we are here. This show is about guns, politics, and related self-defense issues. Fired Up is also rebroadcast on radio, and this is not on our website yet, but we will be leaving KSHP Radio 1400 AM where we are now and transferring over to KELY, which is 1230 AM radio. It's in Central Nevada. It is also streamed on the internet, so you can get it at any time. And we will be on that station, and they are running us at 9:05 AM on Sunday instead of 9 AM. So it's pretty much the same thing. Just need to crank your dial down a little bit from 1400 to 1230. And we'll be there, and you can also get it on the internet and listen on your Walkman or whatever at 9:05 AM. This is a group of 6 radio stations, and we will be streaming on all of them. So one is in Reno. I don't have the call sign here in front of me, but they will be up on our website tomorrow or the next day. Probably Saturday, it'll go up on the Fired Up website, and you'll have the station and the call signs for everybody, and they all stream on the internet. This one is at KELY1230.com if you want to choose that, I think. Don't have the notes. Anyway, check us out when you're getting ready to go to church on Sunday, except we're on a different station. The YouTube version is as it was. We will put up a new show every Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock our time, and those stay up forever. So if you missed anything, you can come back and get it. My guest today is California and Nevada attorney Don Green. He specializes in firearms issues. Don, if you would, a little bit of your background and experience for new listeners.
Well, again, thank you very much for having me as a guest. Again, my name is Don Green, and I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Nevada and California. This is my 34th year of practice, and the emphasis of our practice are gun-related issues, business litigation, and criminal defense. As to guns in particular, we do everything from filing lawsuits concerning guns, gun rights, litigation again involving various statutes in Nevada, challenging statutes. We do administrative appeals to the FBI when there's incorrect or inaccurate information on somebody's background. We try to assist in the correcting of background information when it's provable and when there's actually something wrong. Sometimes it takes court action, sometimes it takes administrative action. But your listeners can reach me through Fired Up with Bob Irwin, looking at your website, or they can go on my website at dongreenlaw.com. That's dongreenlaw.com, and they'll find our information. And my personal cellular is 702-409-8239. And that's 24 hours a day. Thank you, Bob.
And he actually answers that. I just called him a half an hour ago. Try and get an attorney to give you a cell phone if you're in trouble. As regular listeners know, we've been having ups and downs with our emails and so forth. That's all fixed. So we're back on. You can send me an email, bob@firedupmail.com. It works. The phone number in my office, 702-257. I almost want to say 357. Comes to mind for someone. 257-1060. There's a message phone there. You can leave me contact information if you want me to call you back. And I will do that. If I happen to be sitting there answered, and most calls are not answered, I have to get your message, and then I'll call you back. There are, as we normally say, there's several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week. Most of them are not listed by the mainstream media. They only list misuse of firearms and bad things that people do with guns on occasion. So we try to balance that out in our small way. I've got, as usual, 5 or 6 shootings we're going to go over today with Don. Some are questionable, some are good shootings, some are just plain wrong occasionally. We've got a couple of no shots fired cases, which are my favorite because you display your firearm and the bad guy runs away or surrenders. It never makes the national media, but it's probably 95% of the gun engagements in stopping criminal. There are no shots fired. Anyway, we will try and give you opinions on this show that keep you out of trouble. They hopefully will keep you out of civil lawsuits and keep you out of criminal court. That doesn't always work, but if you follow the common sense rules, you don't fire until you actually have to save your life. You have a good shooting almost everywhere except New York and California. And parts of New Jersey. Yeah. It depends where you are when the big bang happens. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. This first case is from WDIC TV4. It's a branch of Click on Detroit. This was reported on the 4th of this month. A mild-mannered musician and grandfather in Detroit just turned 61 years old. He also recently received a license to carry a concealed weapon. They're issuing those now in Michigan. On Sunday morning near his home on Detroit's west side, the grandfather was at a gas station. He just went in for some coffee, wanted some, so I walked down there, he said. A 16-year-old would-be armed robber saw the 61-year-old was armed, so the teen, instead of doing his robbery, tried to take the gun. The 16-year-old robber stuck his gun in the grandfather's back, apparently thinking this guy was an older, easier target who wouldn't resist. The victim told the teen, "All I want to do is leave." The robber responded, "You can't leave." The grandfather replied to that, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" The grandfather said the teen was controlling him. He had him with the gun stuck in his back, and he's controlling his motion. So he pulled out his own gun, and he turned around and he shot the, now he discovers this is a teenager, in the stomach. The teen dropped his gun when that happened. When he got shot, he got surprised. Then he picked it up and limped out of the store. The grandfather told the media there was no way he was going to let an armed 16-year-old make him a victim. "I didn't shoot to kill, I shot to save his life." Interesting comment. "I got him up off me. I've never been through anything like this, never shot a gun before. This is all new to me." The 16-year-old was arrested and charged with assault with intent to murder, carrying a weapon with unlawful intent, and a felony firearms violation. Obviously, he's not old enough to have a firearm anywhere. The teen robber here is the first couple things going on. The teenage robber is distracted by the gun. Whatever money they're going to have in the cash register of a convenience store, the gun is worth a whole lot more. Apparently, the grandfather missed when he had his concealed weapon class what the word concealed meant.
Exactly.
It was visible, so that he distracted the robber who tried to grab his gun. Caught in this position, this grandfather certainly cannot give up his gun. He cannot give this robber, this teenage idiot. So now the teenage idiot has 2 firearms in a whole room full of people. That is not acceptable. So the grandfather made a correct decision to shoot the robber before he can react. It generally takes about a full second for someone to react. If they're pointing a gun at you, you can usually pull your gun and fire before they realize you're pulling the gun. Not in all cases. We all have different speeds of thought, and they have different speeds of reaction. But given the circumstances, that was probably a reasonable thing to do. His second smart move was he let the wounded suspect run away rather than give chase. He was listening to that part of the class. This is a great shoot. Michigan is a good state for this. If we looked at this same case in some other jurisdictions, if you live in California, don't take this one to heart, for instance.
That's correct.
I'll let you charge on, Don.
Let's look at the legal points here. The most the point that stands out the most in this case is that the suspect believes or sees what he believes to be an intended victim who is armed. In just about every concealed carry class in the known universe, one of the first two words, however the matrix is in your class, one of the first two words is concealed. Concealed means concealed. But so that's a problem. The next problem is, do we know that it's a weapon in your back? The standard is reasonableness. Reasonable. Did I understand at that moment, and was my understanding reasonable, that there was a weapon in my back or put to my back? I don't know if it's an airsoft. I don't know if it's a legitimate pistol. I don't know if it's loaded. You don't know. So when I turn around, I cannot get out of the situation other than perhaps by using or threatening deadly force. I would say that was reasonable. The only problem in this is that if you're like in some county in Los Angeles, I call them the coastal counties, San Diego, Los Angeles, Ventura, San Francisco. If you're carrying, if you're allowed to carry, and it's not concealed, is that a defense for the victim? And can the police come against you? I would say that in California, you're going as a victim, and the shooter is going to have some problems.
I could certainly foresee that also. It depends on the prosecutor. I mean, clearly, this is the bad part about trying to teach self-defense with firearms with concealed weapon holders who move to various jurisdictions and travel places. This is clearly a bad shooting in New York City and clearly a good shooting in Wyoming, and there's lots of them in between. Mm-hmm. And then it'll depend on the prosecutor who picks up the case. Is he trying to get reelected on an anti-gun platform, so on and so on. Anyway, he did the right thing, reasonably acted, and hopefully the guy will have no problems. Michigan, it looks okay for what's going on now. They're getting pretty self-defense oriented. KABC TV7 in Los Angeles, I used to watch when I lived there, reported on August 4 of 2017, this is in Victorville, California. Now we're in California now. Reported an armed robbery attempt. The suspect entered the Star Market store, it's on 7th Street, around 6:45 p.m. and asked to buy a single cigarette. The clerk said he couldn't sell just one cigarette. The would-be armed robber then brandished a gun at the store clerk. And that's the term used in the article. We don't know if it's actually pointed or he's just displaying the firearm. Look, I got a gun here. Not enough detail, but anyway, it's a good story, so I want to leave it anyway. So he brandishes a gun at the store clerk. The store clerk then reached down and pulled out his own gun. The robber then backed out the door in a hurry, firing one shot through the store's front glass as he fled. Understanding he's outside the store and fires through the glass. The glass came in and hit people in the store. The suspect then fled in a black sedan. No one was injured. Almost anywhere in the United States, this is a good use of armed self-defense. The victim points his own gun at a robber. The robber panics and runs out to his getaway car. Nobody's hurt, and the clerk does not give chase. Good idea. Again, the clerk victim chose not to fire. From an instructor standpoint, that's an interesting decision when a gun is pointed at you. This is a step up from the guy in the previous story. Now he can see a gun, and it's pointed at him. His reading of the robber, the other potential victims in the store, and the overall situation, apparently he decided his best recourse was to fire. Crystal clear hindsight maybe tells us he did not need to shoot because the guy ran. If he chose not to fire, the point I'd like to make is it's difficult to second guess the guy who was there. He can see the background. He can see the look in the guy's eye. He can feel whether the guy's violent or looks violent or whatever. I never second guess the people who are actually standing there looking at the situation. He may have thought the robber's gun was a fake. That would be right up until the bullet came through the glass.
Correct.
When he left, now he realizes it's not. There'll be a lot of second guessing on this case, I'm sure. When this appears on AMOLAND that republishes my stuff, I'm sure we'll get a lot of second guessing on that. Most armed victims in his case would have certainly have fired. The fact that he chose not to is good. Again, my experience tells me that second guessing the victims who are actually in the middle of this is a fool's errand. It doesn't work most times. Victorville, California. Here we go, Don.
We're going to emphasize the 2 California cases you have today. And we're going to emphasize the counties in which these cities sit. This is San Bernardino County. Now, San Bernardino, the city, is very cosmopolitan, as is Victorville. Victorville is no longer just this local rest stop for Roy Rogers. It's a big town. But it's just a different attitude in California, although the same law applies. And also, I'd like to emphasize, in the previous case with the Detroit, was in the morning. This is at 6:45. And today, I'm just going to make a point that every example that you've given for today, and we'll have in just a few minutes, it's throughout all hours of the day. So you never know when this is going to happen. It's just not at night. It's just not early in the morning. But in this case here, we have a shopkeeper who has a weapon in the shop. What happens if this case was in Los Angeles County or San Francisco? I think the shopkeeper, by brandishing the firearm before the shot was fired. Now notice the clerk retrieves his own weapon after being shown a weapon. Now, my God, can I defend myself? But here's where the media is going to come in. I want to buy one cigarette. You should have looked at this homeless man. You should have looked at the social impact of what you're doing and given him the cigarette. I can see that in Los Angeles. I can see that definitely in San Francisco. So for the listeners in California and the viewers in California, and if you're living in these counties, and we'll have another county that's outside of this, these coastal counties, and you have to look at where you are. But for anybody anywhere, and your shopkeepers, again, check your local laws. Make sure that you're able to have that firearm in the shop, which you probably are. Double check that in the situation when you're presented with a firearm, and the shopkeeper had the presence of mind not to shoot out of the shop, because you never know who he could have hit. So I would say in Nevada, it's a very good shooting. In San Bernardino County, I would hope that the shopkeeper is not arrested nor becomes and this is just 3 weeks ago, I hope that he doesn't become the target of some media blitz because he didn't give some homeless guy a single cigarette.
We hope not. This is going to be a tough case. Again, because of where it is, I'm tempted right here to skip to the other California case. You want to do that next?
Sure.
That would.
At your discretion.
We just
Yes.
talked to it.
There you go. Number 7.
We're on number 7.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Let's do that one. This is from the Ceres. How you know how to
Ceres?
Ceres. Okay.
Ceres, California.
The CeresCourier.com. It's a little community newspaper. This community is about 10 miles south of Modesto, right down the freeway. So you can locate this in California. It's in the Central Valley. This is on the 30th of this month, a couple days ago. Just after 9:30 in the evening, police were called by someone reporting a resident was holding a suspect at gunpoint in his front yard. Officers arrived and saw the 33-year-old suspect running. He hid in a rose bush briefly, but he was quickly apprehended. The homeowner told police that the suspect approached him and his son, an adult son, in the front of their house. If this is the 2700 block of Canyon Drive, if you know where that is in California, and was threatening to kill them, apparently verbally. The suspect refused to leave when he was asked to go away, obviously, and started chasing the homeowner's son around one of the cars in the driveway. Again, screaming, "I'm going to kill you." We are obviously dealing with somebody who's mentally deranged. Anybody watching this could have presumed that at the moment. Fearing for his son's safety, the homeowner went back into his house and retrieved a shotgun and came out and then held this apparently delusional man at gunpoint. The suspect quieted down for a moment, and then he started threatening to kill them again. Eventually, he didn't. The 33-year-old, now all that's happening again is the gun is pointed. The 33-year-old was caught by arriving officers and booked into the local jail for terrorist threats. That's a serious charge.
Yes,
terrorist threats, to word that, against the father and son. Here again, a firearm is used as a warning. No shots are fired. I'm surprised I got 2 of these cases this week, because usually the cases where nobody's bleeding don't make the media, obviously. Hopefully this resident won't be charged with pointing a firearm under California law. Modesto area?
Stanislaus County.
Okay.
Interior County in California, Central California. Different attitude of the police, district attorneys, although they have to apply the same law. You have a different attitude. And I can tell you right now that the sheriffs in Stanislaus County have a different attitude towards good cause, which is a requirement under California law to get a concealed firearms permit. Their interpretation of good cause is something different than San Francisco or Los Angeles. But in this case here, we have two critical points. One, we have the homeowner running into his house to get his weapon. Is that a crime? Is that something you can do? Well, as you pointed out before the show, this transient or this suspect is threatening to kill the son. And by terroristic threats in California, it just can't be, "I'm going to kill you." There must have been something else which is not reported in the media. We don't have the actual police reports, but it had to have been something else really bad. But the homeowner then runs into the home, comes back out with a firearm and points it towards the suspect. And I believe when the police arrive, the suspect is now being held at bay by the homeowner, correct?
Correct.
Issue: can you go from the outside of your home inside your home to retrieve a firearm under circumstances where your son is being threatened by what you perceive to be great bodily harm or death? The answer is yes. And you say the guy that's making these terroristic threats, we don't know if he's got a weapon, but you don't need a weapon. A person can be choked to death.
Oh, sure.
You can grab a rock. You can hit somebody on the ground. And as in the Zimmerman case in Florida, yeah, the defense was saying that the deadly weapon was the concrete sidewalk of which his body and his head is being slammed.
Yeah.
So I would hope that the homeowner doesn't get charged, as you point out in your notes. But I think that if this was in Los Angeles, if this was in San Diego, if this was in Santa Clara County, or perhaps San Francisco County, I think that we'd have 2 arrests here: the suspect and the homeowner. Homeowner for the brandishing of the firearm, going back in to get the firearm when he could have gone in and called 911 and brought out some latte and some cookies, and they could have all had fun.
Looking at obviously what he could have done, which is what the prosecutors are going to do. This is a really scary case. And again, this is a good shooting almost anywhere except the left coast and
Yes.
the east coast. That's the whole point of running these on the show, is so you can understand, if you live in California or you live in Wyoming, from county to county, even in California,
Yes.
the enforcement is likely to be different. And if you have a DA who is running for office on a lock up all the criminals, that's fine. If he means lock up citizens who defend themselves, that's not fine. And it's really hard to tell. What you can tell is if they're anti-gun or not is a good indication.
Absolutely.
This is really tough. Greenwood, Indiana. This is a radio report from a WIBC radio 93.1. There's no video. An Indianapolis man is in jail after police say he broke into someone's home only to be held by the homeowner at gunpoint until the cops arrived. Greenwood police say a 46-year-old intruder entered the home in the 800 block of North Madison Avenue around 1:45 in the morning, just before 2 a.m. Got that, guys? A woman in the home said she and her husband woke up to the sound of breaking glass in another room. That's when the officers say the resident male grabbed a gun and looked around the house. He found the intruder in his spare bedroom. Investigators say the homeowner held him at gunpoint until the police arrived to take him to jail. Voila. According to officers, the intruder claimed, this is why this is not, I didn't run this story because of a non-shooting. I run it because of something that happens at the end. It just struck my fancy. Anyway, according to the officers, the intruder claimed to have been next door and he was trying to stop a friend of his from entering the home. Investigators say that friend was never found and never identified. The police also found several items from inside the home belonging to the couple laying in the front yard. The perp is in the Johnson County Jail without bond. Officers say he also has a felony warrant in Marion County for possession of a firearm. That tells you that he had a prior conviction because he's a prohibited person. If you're a prohibited person, always be sure to take your gun with you when you're doing burglaries so they have an extra charge.
Yes.
Most of these intruders that come at your place at 2 in the morning are not rocket scientists. There's nothing in the reports about the intruder being armed, but the choice not to fire by the resident seems to me to be reasonable. As regular listeners know, the shooting of a bad guy, even under the best of circumstances, can and usually will become an event that alters your entire life.
Yes.
They never end. And the reason I took this particular case, even though it's kind of a silly case, was the intruder. I have to give him credit for a novel explanation to the police. He said, I was trying to stop my imaginary friend from breaking into the home. I was just another good citizen trying to prevent a crime. He's so nuts, he has an imaginary person that he went into the home to retrieve the other guy who doesn't exist from breaking into the home. Being more specific as we should be, and I get off on humorous tangents, but here we have again a guy homeowner who held this guy at gunpoint. He didn't fire. That was his choice. He didn't perceive that this was a threat. The guy apparently gave in immediately when he pointed the gun at him and got on the floor, whatever he told him to do, and waited for the police. So I will not criticize the homeowner for not shooting an intruder because you let a bullet loose in your house. They go through walls and this and that and the other thing. No point in doing that if the guy is not attacking. So it's a good non-shoot. From the point of the show, the legal standpoint. This is good even in California.
I would say yes.
This would be a good shoot.
I would say not because it wasn't a shooting. This is a great example of, I know at your classes when you taught CCW, is that you don't always have to shoot. And that are they saying, oh, is Mr. Green now becoming Mr. CCW? No, from a legal standpoint, as you say, when that bullet comes out of that firearm, it will alter your life, whether you kill somebody or whether you whether you wound somebody in self-defense. This shows that you don't have to shoot, and you're still within your right. Now, could the homeowner have shot and be protected? The answer is yes. Yeah. Again, depending on the circumstances. But it shows that this homeowner may have had the presence of mind and possibly some training. And as you point out in your CCW classes from many years ago and in your book, you point out that training, and I tell people every single day, and we're at gun shows, you need additional training when you, after the concealed weapon class at which you attend. Some people tell me that's all the training I need. I'll say no. Why? Because if you're on the stand and if you've got a self-defense shooting, 99% of the time, you're going to be on the stand because you are the case. The forensics surrounds you. But I'm going to ask you, what training did you have in addition to your CCW during this particular period of time? Well, I went to this and that. And I guarantee you that these instructors at advanced training and also at the CCW are going to tell you that you don't always have to shoot. That's where the legal point comes in. Again, and point out, this is at 1:45 a.m. Previous example in California, 9:30 at night. So these things happen, again, throughout the day, and we're pointing out the times.
Yep. This is from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch on the 28th of this month, a couple days ago. St. Louis, Missouri. An 18-year, this is number 5. An 18-year-old attempted robbery victim told police he was parked in the 1100 block of Lucas Avenue near Washington in downtown St. Louis about 3 a.m. Saturday when 2 men approached and started a fight. 2 attackers, the guy apparently was outside of his car. The 2 attackers showed up, started punching and kicking him. It's hard to kick somebody if they're inside their car. The intended victim grabbed his gun and fired at the attackers. They ran off. The victim lost his gun in the encounter. He told police he wasn't sure if he'd hit the attackers. The officers called to the scene saw 2 men running on Washington Avenue while they were on their way there. One of them was seen hiding a gun in a flower pot. The police stopped the 2 men, one of whom had gunshot wounds. That's a clue. This might be the guys, right?
Yes.
The victim apparently hit one of the attackers, who suffered injuries to his arm and face, according to police. He was taken to the hospital where his medical condition was last listed as stable. The gun found in the flower pot turned out to be the victim's gun. Now here's a connection. This is the gun that he was shot with. He was hiding in a flower pot, one of these big decorative things they have. That it was hidden there after they'd taken it from the victim. The 2 suspects are 24 and 22 years of age. I found that interesting that these are grown-ups. This is not kids. These are not 16-year-old hoodlums who are dangerous because they're armed. These are young adults who are serious threats. The attack remains under investigation, obviously, because the police, of course, are trying to figure out why this guy was standing outside his car at 3 a.m. in a parking lot. They, in a separate interview, a little bit on the police report that I read through, not much of a police report at this point, but they don't believe this was a drug crime. They're not trying to explain why this guy was at 3 a.m. standing outside his car in downtown St. Louis. But apparently stargazing or something, and the police don't think this was a dope deal gone bad, which is what everybody reads this when dope deal. The police have not listed this as a drug crime. There's obviously more to it than that, but the point of the thing was, again, he was armed, and when the fight started, he got his gun and defended himself. Is he in danger from 2 guys that are 24 and 22 years old that are beating the crap out of him? Certainly. He's in danger of great bodily harm or death. Apparently, this was just a street robbery gone bad, and these 2 guys just picked the wrong victim. That's the synopsis of what I'm gathering. There may be more information, and if there is something to change that around, I'll follow up on it in the next show. if we discover this was a drug dealer, you know, and they know this guy is a drug dealer that
Right.
did the shooting, but apparently not. The police department kind of let that go is not likely.
I'd like to follow up on this one. An important point. The victim is 18 years old and says he retrieves his gun and shoots at the attackers. Where was the weapon? Was it concealed? Was it open? Was it in the vehicle? Does Missouri law allow an 18-year-old to carry concealed? I don't know. Does Missouri law allow an 18-year-old to have a weapon, loaded weapon presumably, in a motor vehicle? I don't know. So this is what stuck out with me.
There's no mention of that, so I'm tending to think it wasn't illegal, or they'd have hooked him up too.
So far,
yeah.
But I'd like to follow up on this because I can see how you might get some emails or some follow-up questions from your viewers and your listeners.
I'm sure I will, and hopefully I can find some further information on it before I put this one online to see what else happened. This this one is perfect. This is training wins out. This is from the Beaufort Gazette. This is in South Carolina. Again on the 28th. A lot of these happen on 8/28, and it just runs that way. It must be a full moon because I've noticed when I do outlines.
Was it Saturday or Sunday or Monday?
Five of the cases will be on the same day. You know, all from across the country. It's funny. When I was teaching police academies, we got a lot into this, and we discovered statistically, almost every year, the most dangerous night swing shift for an officer to be shot in the line of duty is, you'd guess, Saturday,
Monday,
you'd guess Friday. It's Tuesdays, like 10 of the last 11 years. Why Tuesdays? Anyway, anyway, back to what I'm doing. This on the 28th in Beaufort County, South Carolina, a teenage boy had already called his dad to say someone was breaking into their St. Helena Island house when the intruder found the teen Monday morning, according to police. The father had left to go to work or something, and the kid is home alone. It's Monday morning, and he called his dad and said there's somebody in the house. The father called 911 and turned around and is coming back to the house. He had just left their home on Ballpark Road when the teen heard a knock at the door, then a window being smashed around 11:40 a.m. This is in the late morning. When he heard footsteps in the home, he called his dad, who immediately turned the car around and called 911. The burglar came in and yelled at the teen, "Where are your guns?" They found the teen after kicking in the bathroom door where he was hiding inside. He'd been told somebody breaks in, hide in the bathroom and lock the door. The boy, now he's discovered, dad's on the way, the police are on the way. He had the sense, he told deputies, he told the bad guys, he was going through drawers in the house, making it seem like he was looking for the guns. When the father returned home, the suspect ran out of the house and started to walk away. The father yelled for the man to stop, but instead of stopping, the intruder brandished a long gun at the father, unknown rifle or shotgun. Reacting to that, the dad fired a shot from a pistol he pulled from his glove box, and the suspect ran off. The sheriff set up a perimeter, searched the area, could not find the suspect, according to the news release. It is not yet known whether the father's bullet hit the suspected burglar, but there is no evidence to suggest that it did, meaning there's no blood trail available, according to the sheriff's office captain. His name is Bob Irwin. The intruder is described as a 6-foot-tall man weighing 150, 160 pounds. He was wearing a blue hooded sweatshirt and white gym shorts. This is such a perfect defense shooting. The father and son, obviously they had plans. If something happened, the son first hid. That was a great idea. If someone's kicking in your front door, breaking a window, call 911. In this case, he called his dad, but call 911 and hide. When they found him and they told him to come out of the closet, they kicked the closet door in and so forth. He started playing this game that he was looking for the family guns, looking places he knows they aren't. They never did say where they actually had guns in the house. But so he's playing along, looking through drawers and things. While the cops are on the way, this kid is really courageous.
Yes,
I'm
very cool, very courageous.
Cool, calm, and collected. The father firing as a shotgun was pointed at him was clearly reasonable self-defense, in my opinion. Obviously, the family was well prepared for a home invasion or a burglary. There's no better example I've seen this year of having a firearm in your home and having a plan if something goes awry, where you've discussed what you're going to do ahead of time. It usually works. This was perfect.
Some people are going to argue that by the father going home, and when the perpetrator comes out, father should stay right there. Father should stay in place. But his son was in the home. And my point is that the listeners and the viewers should realize that when the 911 call ends, that does not end a potentially fluid situation. This was an active crime, which is in progress. So even if the father may have hung up with 911, it didn't stop right there. So you don't pull over to the side of the road. Maybe you pull over to the side of the road to call 911, but when they say we'll get back to you, your reaction is going to be to go home and try to protect your son.
Of course.
And it was the perpetrator who came out and presented and displayed some type of long gun. Again, we don't know if it's real, but it's real enough for there to be a reasonable apprehension of an immediate battery, great bodily injury, or death, substantial battery or death, so that you reach into your glove box in self-defense, pull out the weapon, and fire at the perpetrator. Again, listeners and viewers should point out, and this is 11:40 a.m. in the morning.
It's
lunchtime. And
everybody's up and out.
Your listeners and viewers should realize and actually think about what they're going to do if the situation occurs, but also realize that it doesn't end with the 911 call. Once you hang up from 911, if you're in the Walmart parking lot, or if you're in your home and they ask you to hang up, you don't know if the suspect is going to get up, if he's laying what appears to be wounded or deceased. You don't know if he's going to get back up. So it's good presence of mind on the father. Some people are going to argue that he shouldn't have driven home. I can see those people on MSNBC pointing that out.
He shouldn't have driven home. His son's in the bathroom. These guys are looking for guns. They kick the door in, and of course then the call to dad stops because they have his phone. Dad's going to hang around outside until the police arrive? Not a chance.
I'm just saying what may be argued.
Yeah. I want to be on his defense team. They say he shouldn't have entered the house.
Exactly.
He should have waited a block away till the police arrived.
I think he's okay in South Carolina.
Well, I would hope so. This is just good. I want to talk a bit here about Texas. As we all know, cities in Texas are in the midst of a catastrophic event like they've never seen before. This has never happened before. There has never been this much rain anywhere in the United States ever. The scope of the damage obviously will not be known for months and months. Sadly, one of the 30-some dead known so far include a 34-year veteran of the Houston Police Department. a fellow named Sergeant Steve Perez. He drowned in his patrol car trying to get to work at 4 a.m. He was caught in a culvert and his car filled up with water. They couldn't get him out until the next morning. It was too dangerous for divers to go in because of the flow of the water. Looking at various media reports, and we know really very little about all the carnage that's going on. In our view, here to talk about self-defense with guns and gun issues, various news media and some bloggers have reported literally hundreds of robberies taking place, home invasions, looting, sexual assaults, even reports of thefts of jewelry off of drowned victims where they're in the water and they float down to the ocean and are out in the surf, the dead bodies, and guys, presumably guys, going out there, and because the bodies are bloated, they're cutting off their ring finger with shears. And one guy reportedly had 14 or 15 fingers in a pouch he was using to show off to other people. They've had criminals pretending to be public safety officers to go to houses and say, we're checking anybody here, everybody's safe. And then when the lady or whoever's there, frightened to death of drowning, opens the door, they kick the door in, and she is assaulted or murdered, or, you know, there are hundreds of defensive uses of firearms taking place as we speak. When the situation clears up and law enforcement gets back to chasing bad guys and prosecuting these guys, we'll probably know what really happened. But if the blogs and the limited news media reports are to be believed, we've got gangs shooting at the police boat, the rescue boats, in order to steal the boats. And then they charge people to get on the boat, and every bit of criminality you could possibly, it's a total mess. The law enforcement is not functioning because they're trying to save drowning people. And we've got this whole group in society that is picking on these poor people who have lost everything. It's appalling. And hopefully, when the police get back into being police and chasing these guys, there will be enough evidence to put these guys in prison for a long time. It's just doubly bad because they're picking on people that have lost everything, and it's just,
That's correct.
it's disgusting. The number of people jumping into help is amazing. This group of probably 400 or 500 people that are picking on everybody. One of the police chiefs, I saw him do a speech, he said, "We will get you the maximum sentence on everything that, you know, Shouldn't really say that in public.
Well, they do, and they have.
He's just so.
Is it wrong to request a maximum sentence?
No, it isn't. And if any people deserve this, the evidence is going to be really tough. Lots of cell phone videos, but you know, fingerprints aren't going to be there.
Sure.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of physical evidence that we depend on in court for convictions and defenses are going to be missing.
And from a legal standpoint, I would encourage all of my fellow lawyers in Texas to donate their time and the resources of their offices to assist these victims, so that we do not have a repeat of the abuses and what happened in Katrina. Who's mayor, and the mayor of New Orleans, did he do time? He got convicted and did time.
Yeah.
And then what happened with the BG oil spill in the Gulf Coast in the Obama administration? There were so many abuses by people claiming that you know, they were taken from their homes, their loss of business, their loss of income, especially the people with the who had in the fishing industry. And there were people who went around pretending to be, you know, insurance agents or adjusters and whatever, and saying, okay, we're going to do this and that. And it ended up being abuse. And some of these people don't know what they're signing. And I think that every available lawyer in the state of Texas or in Louisiana, now that the storm is hitting Louisiana and all of the states, should get on TV, call their local stations and say, our law firm will help you, and we review these papers on the government loans, and if they're issuing debit cards or something through these loans, we will work through this process with you so that you have competent legal advice, so that everyone can help these people.
Yeah, that was one of the scams they were talking about, which the San Diego Fox affiliate found all over the place, was these phone scammers calling people that lost their houses and saying, your flood insurance wasn't paid, it's past due, but if you wire us the money now, you can get your flood insurance and save. And they get several hundred people trying to wire money till some of the banks in the Western Union got wise. So why are you wiring money? And the FEMA guys came on the air and said, nobody is getting their insurance canceled because you didn't make the payment. You can't make the payment if you're flooded out of the house. That's what you have insurance for. You know, it's covered. Don't wire anybody money. I'm just cheered up with humanity down there for most of those people, and disgusted with the other whole bunch. If we really didn't have, you know, some of these anarchist guys are moving that we should have no police. We can handle it ourselves, like Berkeley's trying to do without police. The animals will take over the asylum in a heartbeat. A couple of notes I wanted to mention here also, just because. I recently lost 2 friends who passed away. Many of you who are involved in the gun industry in any way in Southern Nevada know or knew Art Dixon. He was a guy missing part of his legs. It was a fixture at the NRA tables in all the gun shows. Always went there, always harping at you to get a higher membership and join the NRA and fight for gun rights. And he passed away, and his websites are still up there, you know, friend Art Dixon. It's just tough. He dedicated his whole life to gun rights.
Yes, he did.
And,
I've known him many years.
I will miss him. And the other one, to me, is kind of a personal thing, and it's Jerry Lewis. Back in the day, before we had shall issue, back when the sheriff was issuing permits if he felt like it, Jerry Lewis wanted to get a permit, and the sheriff at the time was requiring that people not only go through, you know, who are you and a little bit of background check, but they go shoot their gun to show they could shoot their gun straight. And John Moran had sent Jerry Lewis over to me, and he came in and was a typical guy who isn't around guns a lot. And I don't want to besmirch his, you know, he was pretty wound up having to shoot a gun. But he got through it, and we worked together for a half an hour or so. And later he bought up some other firearms from me. But the point of this is, it's a small town, and I would run into him at restaurants and things every 3 or 4 years.
He played the Sahara a lot.
He would always walk over to the table where I was and shake my hand and say, you know, I remember you, and you got me through a really tough thing, and I appreciate it. And the guy's, you know, doing all this stuff, and he owns half the world, and, you know, all the stuff he's going through, and his work with charities and all that. Jerry had an incredibly full plate. And then he would remember that and walk over and shake my hand. I was really touched when that happened. A great man. He'll be missed too by a lot more people. Gun show this weekend, the 2nd and 3rd at the Sports Center up on Sunset Road. I will be there. Don will be there.
We'll be there.
We've got a table there for Fired Up, and I'll be able to talk to you guys in person. Don will be there also to rattle your cage a little bit. And we both get, last gun show we were adjoining
Right next to
tables,
each other,
and
right.
we got, it was amazing the number of people that were there and asked things. Then we have the Great Las Vegas Gun Show at Cashman. That's coming up on the 23rd and 24th. Don's already got a table. I'm going to
Good. It's a good show.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Yes.
It's at Cashman.
Actually, it's a great show.
Big show, and it draws the Great Las Vegas Gun Show. They have the Great Missouri Gun Show and this and that. It's a company that's based out of the Midwest, and their vendors come to the show. So there's lots of people that will be at this Cashman show that are not locals.
No, if you went there last week.
You'll see a lot of
Mhm.
vendors you didn't see before.
Mhm.
It's a great show, the Great Las Vegas Gun Show. We'll be there with a table, hopefully somewhere near Don. I wanted to talk to him about it
Yes,
before.
we'll ask them tomorrow.
We can get an adjoining table would be nice. Again, the replay of the show now, no longer on KSHB 1400 AM. It's going to be on
Okay.
K-Ely,
K-E-L-Y.
out of Ely at 12:30 AM radio. And you can get it on the internet if you look up K-H-E-K. It's going to take me a long time to get to
K-E-L-Y,
I've been saying
right.
KSHB
I know.
for years. K-Ely, 1230.com. Anyway, you can find them on the internet if you look for them. The show starts at 9:05 a.m. Next week, I'm bringing back in Lenny Davis. That'll make 3 weeks out of 4 that he's done the show. I really want to have him on to talk about this stuff in South Texas.
Yes.
And how it's going to be researched. He knows everybody in law enforcement. And if you're listening to this, Lenny, I'm putting you to work this week to find out what's really going on with all these supposed fingers being chopped off and shooting at cops' boats and things. I want to get an idea of how much mayhem there really is. Have a gun, have a plan, know how to shoot, practice. We'll be back next week, Don. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll
It's always a pleasure.
And
an
I'm
honor.
going to find the button here and see. Boy, that came out really good. The screen. We had the computers all worked on. And I understand earlier in the show we were a little out of focus, but that cleared up. We've changed the system in here a little bit. And hopefully we're going to do the same thing with my home computer tomorrow, so it'll work.
Good.
The email works. Send me an email. Call, leave a message if you want to talk to me about something. I can put you in touch with Don. We'll see you all at the gun show. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.